The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline, of Phoenix Suns podcast, back after a short little break so that we could watch the introduction of the Phoenix Suns' brand new general manager. My name is Mike, here with Sam. How you doing, Sam?
Good at the moment. Real quick, I want to say that we just watched the Boston Celtics collapse in yet another game. They're officially down 2-0 in their series against the Knicks. Not Suns related. These playoffs have been really good, especially the start of the second round has been ridiculously good, and nothing would bring me more joy, the hater that I am, than to see the Celtics collapse. So I'll start there.
Yes, all my agendas are actually going really well because, the Houston Rockets were defeated. I appreciated that. Anthony Edwards had a terrible game, and the Golden State Warriors won game one. And now, of course, the Boston Celtics are down 2, and Tatum has been bad. It's been great for my personal brand.
I will say, on the Suns side of things, I do want to apologize to our listeners because I know this is coming pretty late. We've had a bunch of people asking us, we did post about it on social media, but we have had a bunch of people asking us over the past couple of days, tagging us, saying, where's the pod, where's the pod, where's the pod? Obviously, it had to come today and not on Monday or Tuesday because of the Brian Gregory press conference, and it couldn't come immediately after the Brian Gregory press conference because I was at a concert having much more fun than any of you who decided to devote your time to watching that press conference, which we will talk about, obviously, in full. But to all of you who were expecting a pod for the past couple of days, I'm sorry that we couldn't have been in better alignment, is what I will say. But we're here now, and we're ready. Yeah. We're ready to talk about it now. Is that right, Mike?
Our identity is that we're here now, and we are aligned now.
Yes, and that's what's important. That's the most important thing, right?
Yeah. Okay, so the Phoenix Suns introduced Brian Gregory in a live streamed online, at least, press conference on Tuesday at 3 p.m. All of our favorite friends were there asking proper questions to Brian Gregory. And now we're going to have an opportunity to talk about this. And I think this was a really important moment for the Suns as far as attempting to make some sort of headway in building fan trust back, because this is their first opportunity to actually show how they're doing things differently. And it did not, in my opinion, it did not go very well as far as to that end. Now, it's not to say that Brian Gregory came off incredibly poorly, but the news, I think, that we heard out of this was bad. We're going to get into it in great detail, but let's start with what you already hinted at here. In the first remark that Brian Gregory had the opportunity to say, which was just his introduction to everyone before the questions started, he used the phrase aligned or alignment or align 4 times in his first remarks alone, went on to do it almost 30 times over the course of his opportunity to speak.
It became such a bottom line that people were, such a punchline that people were counting the number of times that he said some variation on the word align, either align, alignment, aligned, like you said, almost 30 times.
Yes. Yeah, the implication being, of course, that this is the goal set, and he said that in very plain language, by Matt Ishbia to be an aligned organization chasing the identity that Matt Ishbia laid out in the end of season press conference as well. And also, I think the implication is they were not aligned previously. This was not an aligned organization in the past, in that there is some headway that needs to be made in this organization in order to become an aligned organization top to bottom. That means all decisions that are made are all with the same goal, which, by the way, is a good thing to be aligned. It's just the message, the timing, and the other information that we got from this podcast, from this press conference, left sort of a sour taste in my mouth, in that if aligned means doing whatever Matt Ishbia says, okay, you can all be on the same page there.
Yeah.
It's a dictatorship.
Yeah, I mean,
you can all be on the same page there. But if it means that everybody understands exactly what they're supposed to do, yes, that's what an organization needs to do.
exactly.
They
I mean,
all need to be aligned.
Just the word alignment by itself is a nothing burger. It is obviously something that any organization strives to, just the same as an organization would strive to have good communication or something like that, right? It's one of these sort of meaningless traits that just floats in air. By itself, it doesn't mean much. But when you dig down into what Gregory seems to mean specifically by alignment, in a good organization in the NBA, at least the vast majority of the time, what does it mean for a general manager or a head of basketball ops or, whatever your title is for that particular position? What does it mean to be in alignment with your owner? It probably means you go to your owner and they give you a figure. They give you a dollar amount. And they say, don't go over this amount, go and build your vision, and, don't put me in the second apron or the first apron or maybe even the luxury tax if they're a cheapskate or whatever. But that's alignment, right? That's one version of alignment. This, what the Suns are doing here, and not really to our great surprise, unfortunately, but now it's just confirmed, is completely different. We know that Matt Ishbia is going to be heavily involved in basketball operations. That doesn't mean there won't be areas where Brian Gregory maybe is able to carve out his own little slice, his own little definition of autonomy.
Right.
I think when we talk about the draft and some of the...
You mean the boring stuff?
Some of the remarks he made about the draft, that might be interesting for someone like Brian Gregory. That might be his chance to shine, so to speak. But absolutely, I left this presser, having listened to it, no doubt in my mind that Ishbia is the one calling the shots. It's going to be Ishbia's vision regarding what the Suns are going to do with Bradley Beal, what sort of trade return they're going to get for Kevin Durant, what the next iteration of the Suns, largely speaking, looks like in general. It's all Ishbia. And Gregory is there. And, maybe he makes some moves. Like I said, maybe he has some small amount of autonomy, but it's not that much. And he's mostly playing a middle manager role.
This is the Dallas Cowboys of basketball. Essentially. This is what we're looking at, where the owner is essentially the general manager. And look, the headlines, the two main headlines, if you're looking for reasons, if you listen to this press conference or maybe you missed it and you're wondering why me personally, I don't want to put any words in your mouth, Sam, did not come away from this being excited about this current iteration of decision makers for the Phoenix Suns. There's two things. There's two things that I want to point out that stood out to me. One, Brian Gregory was asked, what is Josh Bartelstein's role in the Phoenix Suns going forward? And Brian Gregory said Josh is involved in every single aspect of basketball operations. And he implied that him and Josh have a very close working relationship. We're talking about a team that since Josh Bartelstein got to the Suns has been absolutely disastrous to watch.
Well, and
incredibly unfun.
Let me just say,
and incredibly frustrating. And they made promises to make dramatic changes, and that change includes the guy who got here and everything went poorly to be even more involved, it sounds like, than he was previously.
And that one was a complete T-ball question, because it's like, look, Josh Bartelstein, whether we like it or not, is still a member. He's still an employee of the Phoenix Suns. You can very easily say, if you're Brian Gregory, I have a strong working relationship with Josh Bartelstein, yada, yada, yada. But he should still stick in his corner as, a financial guy. That should be his role as the CEO of the Suns. He should not be, as the guy who was the architect, it seems, of the Bradley Beal trade, have any say in what their basketball operations are going forward. If this was a serious organization, if this organization, when Matt Ishbia talks about change, is serious about kind of punishing what have been the worst voices, the worst architects for change in this organization over the past couple of years, when in reality it seems like the only guy they've actually punished was James Jones, who maybe made all of the good decisions that this team made 3, 4, 5 years ago. to try and steer them in the right direction.
But like a lot of good ones, yeah.
Yeah, and some bad ones. But Bartelstein's basketball record, which I think you were alluding to since he joined the Suns, is entirely bad. Gregory's basketball record, he doesn't really have one since he joined the Suns, and we've talked about in a previous episode, I don't doubt that the guy knows basketball, and a lot more basketball than I do. He coached, at a high level for 20 years. But
in college!
Yes, I'm just saying, that's still higher than you or I, and I respect that, but it does not rise to the level of resume expertise that you need to be an NBA general manager. It just doesn't. It doesn't.
We're going to talk a little bit more about that resume, but Josh Bartelstein, to me, I think it was telling, one, that he said that about Josh Bartelstein, and two, to me, watching it live as it happened, it was very clear that not only was he prepared for that question, two, he knew exactly what he was going to say, and that was probably dictated to him exactly how to say that. So it was very clear that he wanted to make it clear that Josh is very, very involved. So step one, completely uncomfortable with that. There's no reason, and really no resume for Josh either, to make you feel excited about that. So if we're just going off of that alone, not very exciting. Second thing he said, and this is no surprise, nothing was a surprise about this, Matt Ishbia is going to be very involved. He said it basically in those words, and he said he likes that. He wants that to happen. He said they have a great relationship. He also alluded to the fact that he knows that he wouldn't be in this position without his relationship with Matt Ishbia, which we all know because his resume does not actually stack up to what his job actually is at this point. We all know that the relationship is the only reason, and I respect him for acknowledging that. But what he told us in this press conference, the two main things when we're talking about how this team makes decisions, it's Brian Gregory and it's Josh Bartelstein at the direction of Matt Ishbia. There, historically in the NBA, has not been a lot of teams that have had high-level success with constant ownership involvement in every single decision. Traditionally, in basketball, you let the basketball people make the basketball decisions. You put people in charge, you empower them with money, and you allow them to make the best decisions for the team to succeed. Can this work? Look, there's a world where anything works.
Absolutely, it can work.
Absolutely. You can talk yourself into anything. But everything we have learned about the NBA so far is that you need to understand the NBA, which, look, Brian Gregory understands basketball, has not had a long time in the NBA. College is different. You cannot treat the NBA the same as college. So that's all we know, is that he's had a lot of experience in college and not a lot in the NBA. You have to understand the NBA. You have to have ownership out of your way to make the best decisions. And you have to all be, truthfully, aligned in that in order to be successful. And this alignment, in the way that they're describing it, does not inspire confidence in me. I mean, in fact, I would describe myself as incredibly frustrated by it.
Yeah, I mean, you came out at the start of the episode really saying that if the intention was for the Suns to calm some portions of the fan base down, I think it completely backfired. I think more people tuned into this who maybe didn't know anything about Gregory before this press conference, and they sort of made the situation a lot worse. I think there are a lot more people inside the fan base on the edge of their seat, kind of just feeling nervous. And I can tell you this, I certainly know there are a lot of people around the league laughing at the Suns right now. Now, maybe Gregory will prove them all wrong in due time, and he certainly deserves a chance, and we'll award him that chance. But when you talk about the optimistic case here, I think the best you've got is that sometimes, we all know Gregory doesn't have the experience. Sometimes it's also true that good candidates with experience also suck. Now, if that's your best argument for why we should give him a chance, and we should give him a chance.
Other people could suck too, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If that's your best argument, then you just have to admit that it's not wrong, but it's completely a faith-based argument. It's, grasping at straws for we just really want the team to be better next year, and we have to hope. But that's certainly true historically. I mean, Ryan McDonough in 2013, as a classic example, came in with this background, having been an assistant GM on a very high-achieving Boston team.
The original Nepo baby.
I mean, you can say that, but also had a lot of front office experience, a lot more than Brian Gregory has at this stage. He came in and was universally praised, the Suns were, for that hire. And then it turned out to be a horrendous decision. He made poor decision after poor decision in the draft. Sometimes it just shakes out that way. You've got other people right now in the NBA, and this is why maybe I'm clinging on to this hope that we're not in the worst situation. But like New Orleans... have you seen what's going on with the Pelicans the past few weeks? They hired Joe Dumars and Troy Weaver to lead their front office for the next era of Pelicans basketball. Now, those are guys with a lot of experience, and they've made relationships with NBA players and agents and GMs in a way that Brian Gregory hasn't. They've also made catastrophically bad decisions throughout their careers, right? So it could always be worse. But if that's the best I can say on day one of you being hired... then we're not looking great. And you know, that's about as optimistic as I can get, is acknowledging that it could be worse, but also just us having to acknowledge that we're starting from a serious position of disadvantage here. You know, just when it comes to negotiations, like, think about how much it slows down a negotiation every time Brian Gregory has to pause a phone call and say, hold on, I got to get my guy on this. I got to get Matt Ishbia. Like, not just in the sense of like normal GMs do that. They make the calls to the owners to make sure, hey, do we have the money to do this? That's normal. Gregory's going to have to do it to be like, hey, do you like this player? Do you like this player? Do you like this, this, and this? And that's just not how these things usually go. So that's going to be...
they're going to start just calling the owner directly.
Yeah, it's going to be tough.
Right, that's the conversations are going to go directly to him. Look, ultimately, and by the way, let me just shout out to Kellen real quick, because a big thing that they've been saying to sort of justify this hiring, if you want to call it that, is giving him credit for Ryan Dunn and Osu Ighodaro. And like I said in the previous podcast when we reacted to this hiring, those are good draft picks. They're good draft picks. They're not great draft picks. They're not home runs. Do you want to know when Brian Gregory started on the Phoenix Suns?
No, I know when he started.
16 days before that draft. 16 days before that draft. Now, it's possible he had a lot of influence in those 16 days.
In an official capacity. He was a consultant before then. Yeah. I'm sure he had no effect on you know, their process when he was a consultant there. He was working part-time.
And look, give him credit if you want. By the way, some reporting, not by the most reliable source in Scoop B, but some reporting, which to me very clearly came from people who were just fired, are saying that was not Brian Gregory's decision and that other people scouted him, which I think he himself said he didn't even live in Phoenix during that time. 2 weeks a month is what he was doing before the draft. But like what we're talking about here, and I think the reason it's important to talk about this process is because, yes, ultimately the results are the most important thing. That's the most important thing. That's the only thing that matters in this case. The players that are on this team, the coach that's coaching them, how they play after. And honestly, the bar is set very low to be better next year. It's not very high. It's going to be pretty easy to me to build a team that tries harder than last year, which is going to be his goal. We're going to get into some of the exact quotes that he said in a second. It's going to be pretty easy to leap over that bar. But in order for a team to be successful for a long time, the process in which you make the decisions that you get to, the process itself has to be solid. There has to be logic behind it. It has to be ultimately replicable because things will change and you'll have to get different people in those seats. And if the process is what's broken, that's more concerning than the results themselves being okay at the end of that. Because that means that it's possible that poor decisions will be made in the future. So, you know, for us, for you and I...
To a point, I'm going to throw one caveat in there, which is I don't care how bad their process is. If they get a fake championship out of this, or not a fake championship, if they get a championship,
if they just get a championship,
then all is forgiven. It doesn't matter what your process is. But otherwise, I agree with you. The chance of getting a championship with bad process in this league, other organizations are just too good and too smart.
It's really low. Yeah, so we have to, you know, from our perspective, we have to look at this and say, how are they arriving at the decisions that they are arriving at? And is this something that could benefit the Phoenix Suns in the long term? And ultimately, we still don't know. But I don't think that this process deserves any defense. And I don't think that he went into this press conference and gave us any reason to be excited about the future. Alchemy Roast coffee is my favorite coffee. Every single morning, I start my day with coffee from Alchemy Roast, and you should too. AlchemyRoaster.com has the best coffee, and it's local here in Phoenix. They're a Metro Phoenix-based coffee roaster that focuses on the transformational process of coffee from seed to cup. They're about more than just coffee. Passion, dedication, and community. They're a small batch roastery committed to sourcing the finest beans and mastering the art of the roast, and they do it ethically. A small batch roaster, that means they're sourcing beans from all over the world for you to try, and I highly recommend you pick out some beans on alchemyroaster.com and use the promo code TIMELINE to get some beans. I just tried the single origin beans from Tanzania, and they're incredible. Amazing coffee, lightly roasted and local. Go to alchemyroaster.com, use the promo code TIMELINE, try some of their beans. They have beans from Honduras, from Tanzania, from Papua New Guinea, Guatemala, Mexico, and they're all roasted locally here in Mesa. Alchemyroaster.com, promo code TIMELINE gets you 10% off coffee. Go there, order some coffee today, give it a try. Alchemyroaster.com, promo code TIMELINE. Having said all that, let's talk about some of the exact things that he said, because I think there was a lot of information that he gave about what the future of this team could potentially look like. First, let's talk about the coach. Now, he was asked about the coaching search directly. He did not want to give any sort of time frame for the coach. This is the line that they're all holding, right? They're all just saying things will be worked out in time. We're going to have an extensive search. He did give some idea of what he's looking for. The things he listed were unbelievable basketball IQ, excellent communicator, understands our vision of how to win in today's NBA, which is something that I thought was kind of interesting. Thing.
Yeah, I thought so.
Too. He really was looking sort of trying to figure out forward, and I have some more quotes about him talking about that kind of thing. I don't think there's any surprises here, but did anything stand out to you when he was talking about specific to coaches?
Not coaches, no.
Yeah, it's like, of course they want a good communicator. Of course they want guys that have really high basketball IQ.
Yeah, no one's going to say, we want the dumbest motherfucker possible.
They just got to figure out how to find the right person. He did mention that his experience as a coach helps him to understand how to communicate with players and how to be on the same page as them. And yeah, that's probably true.
Honestly, if there's anything I trust Gregory to do, it's I believe he can talk to coaches in their head coaching search for sure. I'm sure he has a lot in common with a lot of coaches.
He was asked about whether or not Bradley Beal or KD will be on the Suns next year. Now, look, that's a tough question for any general manager to be asked, because the answer is probably no in this case for both of those guys, or at least in his case, he's probably hoping the answer is no. Because it's the only way for him to have any assets to play with to actually try to build a team. But I did think it was kind of funny because he said he thought the Phoenix Suns have a pretty talented roster right now, and that they're better than a 36-win team. I don't know, man. That was a little concerning to me, and I know it's a tough position for him to be in, but what are your thoughts on that?
Propping up value. I think a lot of these guys are going to be sent to other teams in the next 3 months, and again, you're not going to say in like publicly that, yeah, we were a 36-win team and we suck and all our players suck. You know, like if you're any general manager would walk into that room, and if you're thinking you want to get value out of Kevin Durant, you want to get value out of, you know, probably you can't get anything for Bradley Beal. We've talked about that obviously, but maybe Grayson, maybe Royce. You have to sell it, and that's what these guys do better than. Well, I don't know how well they do it, but I know if there's anything I feel like I know about the guys in this particular iteration of the front office now, and this includes Ishbia himself, they're sellers. They're entrepreneurs. They're, you know, they have a line and they're going to stick to it. So I don't fault him for doing that.
He said he has a great relationship with both of those guys. Mentioned that Kevin Durant congratulated him Gave him a hug about his new job, that kind of thing. And it's, it'll be interesting to see what he does, because like this tenure that he has here, what he is about to do for this team and how he has been tasked with transforming this team, there is a chance that his entire job and what he does will be defined by a Kevin Durant trade. Like that will have long-lasting impacts to this team and to its future. And if there are multiple opportunities for him to trade him to different teams, and he has different opportunities to take different packages, what he chooses will define him as a general manager, unfairly or not, because we're not sure how much of he's making those decisions anyway.
And that's what I was going to say is, part of what I was thinking while the press conference was going on, to be entirely honest, is, other than the job title, and I'm sure he gets a raise, what's in it for Brian Gregory? Because if you don't have the autonomy, and we've talked about how this is a guy who's been around basketball for a long time, but he's already 60 years old. I don't know how long he plans to be in a front office role, but I would hazard a guess that this isn't him starting a new chapter of 30 years in an NBA front office, right? He probably has a decade left in him. It's not that long in the grand scheme of things. If he succeeds, does he even get the credit, or does Matt Ishbia just take the credit? And if that is true, why take the job at all? It's just something I found myself thinking about.
I have one guess. He wasn't getting one for any other NBA team.
I guess.
This is his one opportunity to have this kind of job. It's not like he has a resume that, the OKC Thunder were looking at and considering hiring at this point. Look, sticking on the players, he was also asked, and by the way, once again, thank you to all the reporters who were there. If any of them are listening, you guys rock. You're doing a difficult job, I think, in this particular case. It's your first opportunity to meet someone you're talking with all season, and the types of questions that that fans probably want you to answer is not going to set up, or want him to answer. It's not going to really set up your relationship with him to be great. But I think all of the guys out there did a great job. Brendan, Dwayne, Kellen, Gerald. Good job to all of you, Amanda. But he was also asked about Devin Booker and his relationship. This is a Brendan question. I thought it was really well worded in that he asked him about his relationship with Devin Booker, and he pointed out that for the first time, Devin Booker has been more vocal with his intention to be more vocal behind the scenes and to be more involved with the decisions that the Phoenix Suns plan on making. And Brian Gregory, when he answered this question, told a very old man story where he said, I remember him when he was this tall, kind of thing. You know what I mean? But he talked about scouting Devin Booker when he was 15.
He could have said the same thing about Matt Ishbia. He coached him at Michigan State. Anyway, maybe that wouldn't have been appropriate.
But yes, and he did say that Book congratulated him too. He said that his voice is really important. He said, I thought this was funny. He said the collaborative effort has become more and more important in the NBA. It's like, yeah, for how long? 20 years? That's been really important. Longer, maybe? And then, of course, he said, if you don't do that, there's no way you can build that alignment. So when it comes to being aligned, that, of course, includes Devin Booker, which is not a surprise, of course. But yeah, I was grateful that he had the opportunity to answer that question because, maybe Booker has known him for that long, and maybe Booker signed off on this hire as well and feels comfortable with Brian Gregory and the stuff that he says to him. And, whether or not that decision ends up being right, is yet to be written.
Yeah.
But what do you think about this?
Well, I remember the conversation we had like immediately after the hiring, and I posed this question to you of what would you do if you were Devin Booker? I said there are basically two options, and I still feel this way. If you're Devin Booker, the right thing to do, maybe there's no right thing objectively to do, but it's like either start thinking about booking your plane ticket out of here, right? Or take the opportunity you've been presented to seize your own autonomy over the organization and start calling shots yourself. Because there isn't that like big.
There's a power void.
There isn't that. Yeah, exactly. There isn't that big presence in the front office who you have to knock heads with, basically, and you have a direct line to the owner. So I think Gregory might, have sort of been hinting at that right there. That Book definitely does have that opportunity, and I don't know which path of those two that I mentioned he's going to choose yet, but I anticipate Book is more likely to sign off on a soft rebuild around him for a couple years or whatever, and then, yeah, he probably is going to be more heavily involved in the decisions of what sort of players they bring in.
I expect that too, and it
might be relevant to our Trade of the Week segment coming up whenever we do that today.
It's your turn, so I don't know what you're hinting at yet.
I honestly, I think this is, well, we'll get there when we get there.
How involved players are, it has had varying levels of success in the past as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Some players are better at identifying talent than others. I think there's this sort of, sometimes there can be a little bit of a hooper mentality that players have, where if a player is really good at dribbling and scoring, you want to play with them, but that's not always what builds a team that's a winner. You know, you need guys like Josh Hart to win. We obviously just watched the Knicks game, but man,
it's hard with Book to tell because we really don't know how Book feels. He just doesn't talk about these sort of things.
Well, we do know he wanted to play with KD.
Right, so
and that has not gone well, which is not entirely either of their faults.
Right, but what we need and what we won't get publicly is basically an updated version of how he feels, right? Because now at this point in Book's career, he's been around a while. He knows, I mean, like he understands, I'm sure, that he's a phenomenal basketball player, but I also think he understands his limitations a little bit, maybe athletic limitations. He understands that he went to the finals with a bunch of role players who just fit around him really well. And, of course, Chris Paul. And then he understands that he did get to play with KD and Beal, who were a couple of hoopers, and that it didn't work. So, I don't know. Maybe he has the right ideas about how to go forward, and we're not giving him enough credit for sort of his talent evaluation chops. But it's just the sort of thing that we wouldn't know.
It is a unique experience for him in that there's two very clear and distinct looking teams, and one of them was very successful and one of them was a disaster. So if you can't learn from that, you can't learn from anything. The last thing I want to touch on, and I think this may be the most important thing that Brian Gregory talked about as far as the future of this team, and that's the type of players they want, the type of team that they want to be going forward. And I think this is Brian Gregory. This is, there was any moment where I think he attempted to inspire hope in Suns fans, it was this. And I think this is what he should have led with. He said when fans leave the arena, he wants them to say, man, that team plays hard. That's the most unselfish team I have ever seen. Did you see them go for that loose ball or that offensive rebound or something like that is where he went.
He said, next. Get me a team of Josh Harts, which
he really did.
Sign me up for, honestly.
It's absolutely true. How much time did you and I spend talking about hustle players this year? Yeah. And how much more did you appreciate them than 17 point per game Bradley Beal or whatever he ended up scoring this season? You know what I mean? And like, how much more do fans appreciate those players than even fans of other teams until the playoffs, of course, when everyone can see it. And everyone understands their importance to the team. You know, and apparently the Suns do too, because they didn't even give out an award this year because they thought nobody deserved it, apparently. Or maybe they didn't want to give it to Colin Gillespie right before free agency. But that, I think, was really interesting. You know, he also hinted at there might be a time where a player is available, but they don't fit what we do in Phoenix. They're not a Phoenix Suns player. They don't live and breathe the Phoenix Suns basketball the way I think he said it. And those players will not be under consideration. You know, you say that so close to the time that you're talking about whether or not Bradley Beal will be on the team next year. I think we have a pretty good idea of your intention there. Bradley Beal's not that. He's exactly what you're talking about in that case, to me. And next he talked about the way teams play now. I think this was really interesting because I think this was the most insight we got from him into modern basketball, because the most important thing I think with how they build this team, and I think the mistakes that they made, which is partially on them and partially not, was that they built a team that would have been better before they started allowing the level of physicality that they started allowing. The level of physicality that the NBA has ratcheted up to, this team, this Suns team with KD and Book and all the guys around them, was not built for that. They were not ready for that, and it absolutely destroyed them in the playoffs or in the regular season once they started allowing more in the regular season. And he talked a little bit about that physicality. He said, often, this is really interesting to me, and I wonder if you picked up on this. I'm sure you did. Offensive rebounding, yeah. Offensive rebounding is critical because teams that can't shoot just chuck it up there.
Yeah, he said
actually they chuck that thing up there.
Yeah, he said something about, like, you don't, well, I don't know he didn't say it like this, but it was kind of like, you don't even need to shoot because you'll just chuck it up there and get the offensive rebounds. Yeah. And I was piqued by that too. I was like, oh, maybe we are just going to get a lot of Ryan Dunns on this team.
Like I think the idea that you just shoot a ton of threes and it's okay if you miss if you can also get the rebound, it's not entirely wrong.
Well, the Celtics are down 2-0 in their series, as we said, but they are in
Houston just got knocked out of the playoffs doing that too, yeah.
Yeah, and
but they also won a lot of games, and Boston has a championship.
Exactly. They do have a championship. That's a good point. And also, Boston, not a great rebounding team. If Boston was both shot as many threes as they do and was also an awesome rebounding team, now that might be asking for too much. But yeah, they'd probably be unstoppable. So I think he is on to something there in terms of pulling the right levers of what works in the modern NBA.
Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah,
he said, by the way, too, you might have been getting here too, but he reaffirmed a commitment to the draft, and
he did.
I think Brian Gregory cares about college basketball, if you can say anything about him. He staked his career out of college basketball.
We know that for certain, yes.
And we know, I know that, he coached programs that maybe partially through some fault of his own, but I think a lot of also not, like, I wouldn't hold him accountable for this. They were just mid-major programs that, like, couldn't attract the highest of high-level talent, the type of guys that end up becoming NBA first-round picks and whatever. But I'm sure he's always been interested in talent evaluation and scouting, and like, this is the sort of stuff where I think he has the chance. You couple the message of what you just said. He wants guys who are scrappy, who leave fans, like with the right impression of what Suns basketball is, coupled with the fact that I think when it comes to draft picks, he's going to take that process seriously, and he's going to be maybe a little bit more left alone by Ishbia. Because, like, is Ishbia really going to... Maybe he is. But, like, is Ishbia really going to meddle in his business about who the Suns are going to take with the 28th overall pick? Or is that going to come largely from Gregory and whatever his scouting team looks like now? Maybe
is there a Michigan State player available? It depends, right?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. It's that yeah. I
think there's a good chance he will medal. Yeah,
I do worry about that.
He's a booster. He's literally a booster.
I do worry about it, but I do think if there's any place where I have a little bit more confidence, maybe Gregory gets to shine, it is through the draft. And time will tell, because he doesn't have that experience right now. And so we'll see.
Yeah, I do appreciate them talking about that. And I think it could give you a hint about what a potential KD package could be, by the way. Maybe the goal is picks. Maybe that's actually what they want. Maybe they can get 2 for this year or something like that. But are you ready for 2 bigs? Multiple bigs?
Oh, yeah, he mentioned 2 bigs.
Monty Ball. We're going to go back to Monty Ball. How do you feel about playing 2 bigs?
Well, look, when Monty did it, it was, who was it? It was, which 2 bigs?
Kaminsky and Ayton, or...
Oh, Kaminsky and Ayton.
I think there was some JaVale Ayton minutes, at times.
Yeah, JaVale Ayton would just be, that was just a disaster, right? There's just like no chance of it working. I mean, if one of the bigs can shoot and kind of move their feet, then yeah, it's like... He was onto something. Gregory was absolutely onto something where he was pointing out the fact that the small ball revolution of 10 years ago was great, but eventually you run out of the advantage of just shooting more threes than the other team.
It flattens.
Exactly. It flattens, and all the other teams catch up in skill, and all of the guys who used to be 6'5" wings who shoot a lot of threes and could play like the PJ Tuckers of the league, basically. Well, the next generation of players being drafted are all maybe that guy, but now they're 6'10". Now they're 6'11". And so if you can get a 6'10", 6'11" guy like that, maybe a Jabari Smith Jr.,
Jalen Smith,
a Jalen Smith. I think that was the intention with Jalen Smith, and Jalen Smith became an NBA player. Just, he wasn't Tyrese Halliburton.
Just a mediocre one, yeah.
Yeah, if you can get players with both size and skill, why would you ever turn your nose up at that, right? I understand the premise. It's hard. It's going to continue to be hard. But yeah, when they say that they're looking ahead towards the future, I know that's like a big thing that they're looking at. 2 bigs.
2 to 3 years down the road, what does the game look like then? That's kind of how he ended what he was talking about there. And I think that's really the most important thing, because as teams flatten out, as every team starts shooting 30+ threes, what are the other advantages you can get? You got to turn them over. You got to get offensive rebounds. You got to win the possession battle. We talked about it all season, and we talked about it, in fact, on our last episode. And he understands that, and it's not complicated, right? I think everyone in the NBA probably understands that. but you have to find the margins where you could win this sort of analytic battle ultimately. And if you can find ways to win that battle, if you're shooting 10 more shots than the other team, maybe you're shooting slightly worse. Efficiency is not the entire name of the game now. It really isn't. Shooting more is the name of the game now. Taking away shooting possessions from the other team is the name of the game. Yeah. Every team is pretty efficient. And I think, too, it's important to think 2 to 3 years down the road, because what's happening right now in the NBA playoffs is actually kind of fascinating. It's the most physicality that we've had in 15 years, probably, in the playoffs. It's also the most exciting. It's also one of the most watched playoffs we've ever had, in at least the last 15 years as well. You know what that means? It's not going away. It's not going away.
It really is crazy, though, because and I know teams they build for the playoffs, right? They don't build for the regular season, but it feels like a different sport sometimes. I mean, pace of play is like damn near 110 possessions for some of these teams per game in the regular season, and you've got, scores in the 130s, 140s, and then all of these playoff games, they look like 2004 again sometimes. I mean, yes, teams are shooting a lot of threes, but the physicality is off the charts, and pace drops way down, like 15, 20 fewer possessions for each side per game. Teams are not scoring 100 points in a lot of these games. It's really interesting. And I think trying to build a team that understands modern spacing concepts and is skilled and is tough in a way that this last iteration of the Suns just were not tough. They just folded at the slightest physicality.
And still shoots.
Yeah, and checking all of those things is really hard. But every
especially
GM is
with
going to be after it.
With no assets, right? Is there at least a small chance that they're just saying this about Josh Bartelstein until Bradley Beal's gone?
I'm not. I doubt it.
Just throwing it out there. You think you can neuter his job after that? Maybe even fire him after Bradley Beal's gone. You can't really piss off Bradley Beal's agent right now. Maybe wait a little longer, and then you can piss him off a little bit later. Last final thoughts on this, and we'll get to our trade of the week. Brian Gregory, I hope you are very successful. I hope we come back after this season, and then after every season, and we defend you against people who hate you. Because ultimately, when you take a GM job with a team, there are people that are going to hate you no matter what. And, we spent a lot of time defending James Jones. Me personally, at the very least, spent a lot of time defending James Jones. This podcast was sort of founded on the idea of hating Ryan McDonough. So we have had different relationships with general managers on this podcast over time. But I wanted all of them to succeed. I want the Phoenix Suns to be great. And I hope that Brian Gregory, in his 30 years in basketball, something he mentioned multiple times, can help him to make those decisions. And look, truthfully, ultimately, I hope Matt Ishbia is a good GM. Because that's kind of what it is right now. Hope he's good at it.
All is forgiven if they win.
There's not a lot of faith that the last season and a half, 2 seasons has inspired. But I hope they're successful.
I
look forward to covering him.
I can't say I blame the guy who spent $4 billion on this organization or whatever, that he wants to call the shots. I'm never going to know what it's like to be worth that much money. But I just can't say with all confidence.
Sam, someday you will.
I can't.
Someday.
Subscribe to the Patreon. Put me on the path. No, I can't say that if I was in the same position, I'd like to be like, yeah, I just hired the right basketball people and let them do their job. No, I'd probably be an armchair GM. I'd probably meddle a little bit.
Yeah.
All is forgiven if you're good at it. But it can get really bad, too. And we'll see. We'll have to revisit.
Let's make a trade.
Let's make
it's
multiple
your week.
Trades. It is my
multiple
week.
Trades. Okay, I never know what you're gonna do. It's always exciting to be
I just have a couple of different options for you. So
okay.
It's been did we do one of these last week? We did, but it was like 9 days ago because it was we had to delay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What did you do last week? Why can't I remember? You did.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
Was it a KD trade?
I think it was. That sounds right.
Oh God, I really can't remember, man. I feel bad. I liked
That's
it.
okay.
I remember that I liked it. Someone will remind me what it was.
Okay.
But here, a general recap of what we've done. We've done a lot of KD trades. We've done a few Beal trades. But what
I remember.
What was it?
It was Karl Anthony Towns trades, trying to send him to other teams.
Yeah. I do remember that.
Which, hey, they might make the finals, so.
It's true. It's true. The general purpose of everything that we've done so far, where I wanted to steer us in a new direction this week, is until now we've been operating under this assumption that the Suns are in the second apron. And if the Suns are in the second apron, be it through miraculously they're able to make a Bradley Beal trade or a Kevin Durant trade, if they're in the second apron, then we know they can't aggregate other salaries. They're sending out Kevin Durant's $50-something million, and they can take back at most $50-something million. Or they're sending out Beal's $40-something million, and they take back, or maybe he makes 50. I can't actually remember. But they take back no more than what they sent out. I would like to challenge that this week, and for the first time say, because we have discussed it before, what if they waive and stretch Bradley Beal? And yes, I know there are the rules. They have to buy out, agree to a buyout with Beal first, and then they waive and stretch, and they would save, I don't know, $15 million or something on the buyout, whatever. Let's just say they do it. They buy out and waive and stretch Bradley Beal. And they are now officially, let's say they do this in the next 4 or 6 weeks, right? It could be before the draft. Could be tomorrow.
They could.
These trades that I make don't actually involve this year's draft, but theoretically they could, right? If they make that trade, they are no longer a second apron team. If they are no longer a second apron team, other opportunities open up that were not available to the Suns before, because now they can aggregate salaries. And I wanted to give you a couple of different paths that they could go down here. Okay, are you ready? So first
we're
of all,
talking post buyout or like post trade that gets them under the second apron.
Yes, totally
okay,
conditional on the Bradley Beal thing happening first, and then understanding that they're going to be taking that $20 million cap hit for the next 5 years because of the stupid decision that they made. But okay, if they decide to do that, now they can aggregate salaries. So
they can aggregate salaries. Just to recap what they can do when you're under the second apron or under the first apron. You can aggregate salaries, multiple players going out in order to make up enough salary to get another player in. You can take back more than you send out, which is an important rule for.
I think it's 110%, though. It used to be
110%
like
over the first apron, 120% if you're under the first apron. So you can still go up to 100. Yes.
Yeah.
And then and you can trade cash. That's the other one. So, and there's probably more involved, but those are like the big ones.
The basic version of a trade here, because I have a Kevin Durant thing too. But before we even get to Kevin Durant, the basic thing that the Suns could do, regardless of what they do with Kevin Durant, is once you can aggregate salaries, you've got Grayson Allen and Royce O'Neal sitting right there, right? And so Grayson Allen and Royce O'Neal combined, that's $27 million. Before, you had one guy in Grayson who makes 17 next year, another guy in Royce who makes 10. By themselves, if you're a second apron team, I'm not sure that either guy gets you more than like maybe you get a really bad first round pick and like a mediocre role player who is obviously worse than you're already trading a role player for those guys, right? If you combine them together, $27 million. I looked at the player contracts for next year, Mike, just to see what type of guy could we pair Devin Booker with who makes under roughly $28 million next year, and are those guys attainable? And you'll tell me, because maybe they're not. I just have 2 ideas for you here. The first guy, I had to bring him up because of the Michigan State connection. Jaren Jackson Jr.
Okay.
Is there any world, the Suns have like 3 first-round picks that they can trade. They all suck. They're like, late first-round picks.
They have 2, I believe.
Do they only have 2?
Yeah, because they traded
I thought
one
it was
with
3.
Nurkic.
Oh, they did trade one. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so, if they only have 2, they have 2. They've got 2 first-round picks, 2 late first-round picks they can trade. They also have Ryan Dunn and Oso Ighodaro. If you can aggregate salaries, you could add in Ryan Dunn or Oso Ighodaro. Is there any version of a Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, and a first, multiple firsts, Oso Ighodaro for Jaren Jackson Jr. trade that works for both sides, that works for you, would you be interested? I have a
Yeah.
feeling the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Here's my thought. I have to pull up his page actually because I didn't.
Are we
have
keeping
it right
KD in this scenario?
We can if you want.
Because
I
you can
probably
get
wouldn't.
more picks if you trade KD.
It's true. You can.
So you
if you
can
do
make the
all of
trade a
these
little
trades
bit
on the
better.
same day. Here's what I think is interesting about Jaren Jackson Jr., at least a little bit, is he is a free agent at the end of next season. And I think Jaren Jackson Jr. is a
He's
really good player.
interesting.
I think Jaren Jackson Jr. is a really good player, but I think something that deflates his value in a way that's a little bit unique is Jaren Jackson Jr. is firmly in that tier of players, at least to me, where I think everyone kind of understands he's not like a top 30 player in the NBA, but he wants to be paid like one. And I wonder to what extent, like the Grizzlies have to have these discussions right now. They have John Morant making a lot of money. They have Jaren Jackson Jr. making a lot of money. They have Desmond Bane making a lot of money. They need to do something, or they don't need to do something, but I think that would be pretty disappointing for their fan base if they did nothing, right? So I just wonder if Triple J ends up being the guy traded. I think he would carry a lot of value for a team like the Suns, but at the same time, I think maybe you could get him for a little cheaper than you would expect because maybe Ishbia is willing to pay a Michigan State product
A max
like
contract.
that,
Yeah.
the $45 million or whatever that he wants on his next contract. That, let's be honest, I think he's a good player, but he probably doesn't deserve. And I just wonder what that does for his trade value.
It's interesting. I think the flaw that you have in this is that they would be bad, the Grizzlies. And I don't know that they want to be
You think
bad.
they would be? Yeah, it's so you're. I think you're right. And so this was more of a long shot. I do think
The
you're
one
right
thing
that
I'll
they
say
would be
is
bad.
if
I
they
think
also trade Desmond Bane and attempt to like get some sort of other type of star to play next to John Morant, or if they're
Sure.
just resetting entirely and they trade all three of the guys and try to get picks, like that's a world where that works. But if they try to use something that the Suns gave them to also trade Desmond Bane, then they at least have players in Grayson Allen and Royce O'Neal that can do some of the things Desmond Bane could do. And they try to put a different
and
player next
that's-
to Edie and
It's definitely fair. And another thing I was thinking about here, if you put Grayson and Royce together, another thing you could do is you could send them. I didn't try to construct a trade this way, but you could send them each to a different team, like include them together in terms of you're sending out $27 million of salary, but a 3-team trade where you send one guy to one team and one guy to another team. Because I think something that's difficult that this year's Suns kind of verified for us. Grayson Allen and Royce O'Neal, both good players, no doubt in my mind, both can help a playoff team. But if you have both of them, that's like kind of too many minutes in your depth chart being taken up by guys who are just like not really good defenders. Like I was pretty disappointed with Royce's defense overall this season, just not really making a ton of impact plays. And Grayson, we know not to expect too much from him there. So yeah, I agree with you. I think it would be hard to find a team that like definitely wants both of those guys and thinks it makes them a lot better. That being said, I had to ask the other guy I have to ask about, Cam Johnson.
okay.
Grayson, Royce,
Give
and
them-
one of
give
those
them
garbage
Royce
first round
back.
picks for Cam Johnson and Derek Whitehead. You just need like another
Right.
salary because Cam makes less. He makes like 22 or
They
something
have a ton
like
of
that.
cap space. Technically, you don't need to take that back.
That's true. Okay, that's a good point. Yeah, I guess you don't need to. I just threw in something just because I was used to trying to match as closely as possible. But yeah, I mean, Cam is much worse than Triple J, I think, but he's still clearly an upgrade over either of those two guys, and is a guy that I think Book liked playing next to, and is a guy who also I think took like a miniature leap in Brooklyn. Like, definitely shouldn't be expected or counted on to score 20 points per game for you, but he kind of can in a pinch. He averaged 19 a game this year for Brooklyn and kept his efficiency up. So, yeah, I don't know. Would you consider that one?
I would. Yeah, if you can get it for one pick, I think that's a worthy trade. Especially if you have
Yeah,
the ability
Grayson,
of
Royce,
trading KD
and-
later and getting other assets
and
that
a
you could
30th pick.
potentially put around him. If you're trying to build a team around Devin Booker, a smart player like Cam Johnson that's capable defensively and can still take some of the load offensively from Devin Booker, you need that as soon as possible. Like, that's not... You want to be good next year, you need that next year. So they're going to have to make some kind of trade like that.
And this is the concern too, right? Like Cam, if you're trading for him, okay, you can go and still make the KD trade if you want to pull the trigger on that after you do something like this. But I think we do all know Cam can't be like your second option. He's not enough of an advantage, not on a good team. He's not enough of an advantage creator by himself. If you could get him somehow as your third option, though, I think he's probably good enough at this stage of his career to do that. And he's basically like just gives you a lot of the stuff that Royce and Grayson already gave
at
you.
6'9".
But in the package, exactly, in the package of being 6'9", and just gives you a little bit more, like not like he's a Jay Crowder type, we know that, but like just gives you more of the physicality, a little bit more of the bodying up that these guys we had on our roster just can't do. So I think that would be interesting. Okay, and I have the real trade for you this week. Those are just the warm-ups. Are you ready? This one might be the dumbest trade I've ever come up with.
Okay.
And I did put together a 5. Was it a 4-team or a 5-team? Is it a 5-team trade the other week?
Yes, you did. 5.
Okay. I put together a 5-team trade the other week, and this one is dumber than that, but I had to throw it out there. It's only a 3-team trade. I had to throw it out there. So far, the idea has been, well, let's put together Grayson Allen and Royce O'Neal. It's $25 million, and then you can trade KD in a separate deal, or you could even keep him. But what if you put together KD and Grayson Allen and Royce O'Neal in a single trade? Now you're looking at $80 million.
We're swapping a whole team.
Remember, something that we did in the past, some of our KD trades have been like, let's trade KD, who makes 55, for Trae Young, who makes like 45, or Sabonis, who makes like 45, right? Like trying to get the other star plus like maybe a little bit for KD. We've tried doing that already. Well, if you have $80 million going out, now you can take in multiple guys instead of just a Trae Young or a Sabonis. What if you bring in multiple guys who make $35 to $40 million? That math works. Those are theoretically good players, right? They're making the money to be considered good
so
players.
is Bradley
One should
Beal,
think of them
yes.
as good players. Well, you're going to see.
Oh, no.
Depends how you define good. Do you define good? Here's your hint. Do you define good as what a player does when they are on the court? Is that good? Regardless of how consistently they are available to be on the court, are they still good? Are they still good? Answer the question before I give you the trade. Are they still good? Here is the 3-team trade idea that I came up with. My greatest work yet. In a 3-team deal, the Memphis Grizzlies acquire Kevin Durant. A new Kevin Durant team. A new team enters the arena. We've had... Who have we had so far? We've had the Knicks.
Spurs.
We've had the Spurs. We've had... I can't even remember all the rest
the Rockets.
of them. The Rockets. Yeah. The Spurs, the Rockets, the Mavs, the Knicks, the Timberwolves.
Yep.
And here come the Grizzlies. Team number 2, the Phoenix Suns get Ja Morant and Zion Williamson.
You're out of your mind.
Double down on it.
It could be theoretical. It could be a theoretical good team in that case, right?
Double down. Does this
Would be fun in a video game?
The New Orleans Pelicans get the New Orleans Pelicans, newly led, as I said, by Joe Dumars.
It's a great
acquire
point.
Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal. Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, and Brandon Clark. Now let's go through it for each team. What do the Grizzlies get? Well, I just said 5 minutes ago they need to do something because they are currently not.
I don't
good.
mind.
They
that
swap
for them.
out.
It's kind of interesting, yeah.
They swap out Ja Morant. They get Kevin Durant. I think they get better. They straight up get better. What do the Pelicans get? They get off Zion Williamson, who has not worked out for them, and they get a bunch of role players. You know, guys who can fill a role, are a net positive on the basketball court, who they could either flip down the line, or who have contracts of like, you know, no more than like 2 or 3 years. Like it's not like long-term commitments. So that's what the Pelicans get. And let's be honest, what is Zion's trade value right now? Come on.
Very low.
The Phoenix Suns get 2 guys who, if they play and when they play, it's a new big 3, baby. Out with the old, in with the new. Does this not strike you as a Matt Ishbia move?
Yes, of the Matt Ishbia of the last 2 years, yes. The Matt Ishbia that he's been describing this new identity of the team, no.
Well, that's where I think you're wrong, because I think these are two guys who, on average, play about 40 games a year in Ja and Zion. But when they are available, I would describe their games as quite physical, actually.
Yeah, that's true.
We would get a lot of paint points, this team. And also, the highlight reels would be fucking sick. I'm not here to make any promises that this would be like a championship team.
It wouldn't
and of course,
be.
like,
I'll make that promise.
Well, but what if they're all healthy? What if it happens? What if you get the 1 year of Zion playing 80 games? What if he's in great shape? What if they make him hike Camelback before every practice? And he's in great shape.
I mean, it's very
From a pure
creative.
talent-
I'll give you that.
Thank you. Thank you. From a pure talent perspective, I'm not sure I could have possibly acquired you two more talented basketball players than these two. Also, not even mentioning like all of the Ja antics and maturity issues and things that, you know, you may or may not want in your locker room. There would be a lot to deal with here. Mm-hmm. It would be a lot. But it smells like an Ishbia move to me.
Good work. I mean, we did spend a very long time, you know, criticizing a future general manager, current general manager in the NBA, and then you came up with one of the dumbest trades I've ever heard. But we are entertainment first, man.
That's what the people pay me for. Exactly. That's why I'm in the entertainment biz and not the front office biz.
Good stuff. I appreciate the work that you put into that one. That's not easy. Coming up with new trades every week. We're going to be back next week. I'm going to have to come up with one next week. As we know, it'll be my turn, and I'll have quite the challenge to try to top that one. You got anything else before we go?
I don't think so. We're going to have to do a Patreon episode this week.
Yes, we'll figure that out. Probably tomorrow or the next day. Probably Friday, I'm guessing.
Might be time for a mailbag. It's been a while.
That could be interesting. Yeah, and I think we'll have some
Otherwise,
NBA playoff
we'll see
ball
if
to
any,
talk about, too, because I do want to talk more about that.
We'll see if any coaching... Yeah, unless any coaching slop drops of like actual
it's
candidates.
True.
Who we can talk
and I'm
about.
sure we'll get some idea
Be on the
of
lookout,
interviews
though.
soon. You know, from what we know, James Jones already contacted some agents, so I think we have some idea of what's coming. So yeah, we appreciate everyone for listening. Back with the Patreon episode soon. Thanks everyone.